More now on this morning's major announcement by Fairfax. Michael Smith is a former editor of The Age, where he worked for 25 years. He joins me now on the phone from Melbourne. Mike Smith, good morning. As a passionate newspaper man who worked for so long in the broadsheets, it must be a nostalgic day for you.
It's a huge day, Joe. Maybe the sort of biggest announcement in newspapers for 100 years. I think what it means is that the golden age of newspapers is dead. The big question is whether the golden age of journalism can continue.
A lot of people were expecting this announcement, but not so many were expecting the figures. 1,900 jobs to go. Does that seem excessive to you?
It's a huge number of jobs, but I'd be surprised if most of those weren't in the printing operations. I've heard figures of about 380, 400 journalists amongst those, which is perhaps not quite as bad as when the announcement was first made, but it's still a huge swathe through some of the finest reporting staffs in the country.
So if 380 to 400 journalists are going, can Fairfax credibly maintain that it will keep its journalistic standards?
Well, look, this announcement is designed to save the newspapers, not to destroy them. It will all depend on how they make the cuts. In my view, they've got to get back to their core business of reporting news, politics, business, sport. They could get rid of a lot of jobs in journalism covering entertainment, lifestyle, and fairy floss stuff that online and television and radio does a lot better anyway.
So to an extent, had it lost its eye on the focus, you're saying it should go back to its core business?
It should, yeah. Look, Fairfax and newspapers in general have been slow to respond to the digital revolution. 20 years ago, papers like The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald had the nearest thing to a monopoly on the big classified advertising divisions of real estate, cars and jobs. The company thought it was impregnable. They thought it could fight off any attack, but it was wrong. And the people who got into the online business for delivery of classified ads were not newspaper companies, but pretty soon they started stealing the revenue, and the newspapers didn't respond quickly enough, and now they're at a crisis where they have to take measures like this, which are really unprecedented.
Can you understand the rationale of going tabloid?
Yeah, look, Fairfax has looked at going tabloid for 30 years. It used to be the fact that the practical problems in doing it were impossible to overcome. You couldn't print a tabloid. There was no press in the world that could print a tabloid big enough to contain Saturday's Age or Sydney Morning Herald. It just wasn't physically possible. Also, when you look at classified advertising, when they looked at it, you couldn't print the same number of ads on two tabloid pages as you could on one broadsheet page. So the change would cost millions of dollars a year. But of course all that has changed now because the classified advertising has dried up, and it's now much easier from a physical point of view to make the papers tabloid, and there are arguments for convenience and ease of purchase at the newsstand and on people's front lawns.
And will that lead to any significant reduction in costs for the company itself?
I think it will lead to reductions in costs in printing. They're talking already about getting rid of their printing facilities in Sydney and Melbourne. If they're printing fewer newspapers, they need fewer production facilities and fewer production staff. And I think that's where the biggest savings will come.
Will a paywall work in Australia?
It has to. If the paywall doesn't work, the newspapers are dead. It's going to be tough. It's going to be hard to migrate people from a free internet news service to one they have to pay for. And the critical thing there is they've got to produce a product that's worth paying for. They've got to give them journalism that they can't get anywhere else. I'm not sure they've been doing that in the last 10 years, but in my view, they really have to get back to the core, hardcore journalism to produce material that isn't being produced by online bloggers, television or radio.
OK, well, no doubt there'll be a few beers tonight at the journalism haunts in Sydney and Melbourne with this news today from Fairfax. Mike Smith, thanks very much for talking to us.
Thank you.